No one expected the financial world to wake up to a shockwave like this, but imagine opening your eyes one morning and discovering that one of the largest American banks had flipped the script on global currency trading overnight, unleashing a move that analysts never saw coming and investors had been begging for over a decade. Picture the entire internet exploding with screenshots, whispers, and breaking alerts. Chase Bank launches full Iraqi Dinar exchanges with no limits and no waiting. The scenario feels almost too wild to be real, like the kind of twist that changes everything in a single moment. And yet here we are diving into a fictional exploration of what such a moment might look like in 2025. Imagine millions of people who had held their dinar for years suddenly flooding banking lobbies in disbelief, expecting long lines, delays, or complicated verification, only to find the opposite: clean desks, prepared systems, and bankers calmly saying, "Yes, dinar exchanges are fully active today." The fictional event would instantly ripple across financial markets, sending shock tremors into forex desks, currency tracking apps, and international economic commentary panels. In this imagined scenario, Chase's decision would be described as bold, historic, even revolutionary, marking the first time a major U.S. bank fully embraced a controversial and globally scrutinized currency without hesitation. People would talk about how the tellers seemed trained weeks in advance, how new digital exchange interfaces appeared in the Chase app, and how customers were able to walk in with dinar, verify their identity, and walk out with USD deposited instantly. No strange fees, no hidden markups, no stories about, "We don't do that here." Think about how the fictional news would circulate globally faster than any RV rumor ever has, pulling in everyone from seasoned forex investors to curious newcomers who suddenly wanted to understand why a bank would make such a move. In this narrative world, some customers might report exchanging modest amounts, a few thousand dinar, while others might walk in with thick stacks they had stored away since the early 2010s, long before anyone imagined a major institution would normalize such a currency. Meanwhile, media networks would scramble to interpret the situation, fueling speculation about Iraq's economic reforms, potential revaluation signals, and the global significance of a Western megabank stepping into the arena. Across YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, and Telegram, creators would race to upload their takes, some calling it the start of the RV wave, others urging caution, and still others framing it as a long overdue acknowledgement of Iraq's emerging monetary stability. If we extend this fictional world further, imagine the reactions inside Iraq itself. Government officials issuing carefully worded statements, economists hinting at strategic timing, and citizens debating whether the dinar's international perception had just transformed overnight. The streets of Baghdad financial districts would buzz as traders refresh screens every 30 seconds, watching USD/IQD fluctuations like never before. Meanwhile, in the U.S., everyday Americans who once dismissed the dinar conversation might find themselves Googling terms like Iraqi currency reform, forex liquidity expansion, and Chase exchange rate window. And through all this, the imagined environment becomes a perfect storm of curiosity, hope, speculation, skepticism, and opportunity. The world you're hearing in this fictional script is not real news. It's a scenario designed to help you picture the massive ripple effect such a move could unleash. But if this kind of deep dive storytelling keeps you alert, informed, and ready for real events when they do unfold, make sure you stay with us, keep watching, and continue exploring this journey as we
Now
push
imagine
further
the
into what
hours
such a
after
dramatic
this fictional
change could
announcement
mean
as
for
the
the
global
story
financial
continues
dynamics.
building momentum like a tidal wave gaining speed. People across the country would rush to Chase branches, not because they were desperate, but because they were stunned that something previously treated like a rumor had suddenly become accessible through normal banking channels. The fictional scenes would show long lines forming outside major city branches, not chaotic, but buzzing with energy as people share their personal dinar stories. A veteran who brought some back after deployment, a family that purchased a modest amount years ago as a long-term what-if investment, a retiree who held onto dinar purely because they believed that one day it would be recognized by the mainstream financial system. Every person in line would have their own emotional reason for being there, and the fictional atmosphere inside the bank would feel strangely calm, as if this were something the institution had been preparing quietly for a long time. Imagine screens behind the bankers displaying updated exchange rates, compliance guidelines, and verification notices that look polished and intentionally designed. The digital system would handle the process, scan the currency, authenticate, calculate, deposit. No delays, no doubts, no second opinions. Just straightforward normal banking, as if the dinar had always been treated like any other foreign currency. In this fictional scenario, the online world ignites even more. Forums blow up with posts like "just exchange at Chase, it's real" in this scenario. Further, imagine economists hosting emergency live streams, discussing whether such a move could push other banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, to adopt similar services. Forex traders would be glued to charts, watching liquidity spikes and spread tightening as the dinar gains temporary attention. Whether or not the currency value moves in this fictional universe, the psychological impact alone would shift investor behavior dramatically. People who never cared about global economics might suddenly find themselves watching Iraqi parliamentary updates, oil price movements, and central bank statements with a level of interest normally reserved for major stock market shifts. Meanwhile, analysts in this scenario would argue about the deeper meaning behind Chase's fictional decision. Was it a sign of geopolitical alignment? A response to Iraq's strengthening economy? A test of public sentiment? A precursor to a broader global shift? Each theory would spark new videos and conversations, feeding a cycle of speculation that transforms into a cultural moment. In this imagined narrative, even international banks might take notice. European financial institutions would quietly monitor U.S. reactions. Middle Eastern banks might issue cautious remarks, watching to see if the West's newfound embrace of the dinar aligns with regional monetary goals. And as the fictional controversy builds, influencers, commentators, and everyday people would all play a role in shaping the story, some urging excitement, others urging caution, all of them part of the same massive conversation about what the world might look like if a major institution truly backed a currency long considered speculative. By the end of this hypothetical whirlwind, viewers watching this video would be asking themselves one big question: what does such a scenario mean for the future? And what would you do if a real-world event ever mirrored this fictional one? Now, imagine days later, this fictional scenario becomes even more intense as global reactions pile up, and people begin to reassess their entire understanding of what the Iraqi dinar could represent in a world where major institutions handle it without hesitation. Visualize the international financial news cycle spinning non-stop as experts debate whether such a move would destabilize regional currencies, strengthen Iraq's role in global trade, or simply act as a test balloon for broader monetary reform. In this scenario, Chase's fictional decision becomes a catalyst for unprecedented global dialogue, prompting governments to examine their currency policies and prompting investors to consider emerging markets with renewed curiosity. Conversations erupt in coffee shops, workplaces, and dinner tables, with people sharing clips, charts, and speculative takes about what such an event might mean for long-term stability in the Middle East. Meanwhile, content creators across platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, seize the moment, producing hour-long breakdowns, live Q&A sessions, and interviews with economists who try to decipher whether a real-world version of the scenario could ever unfold. Some warn viewers not to jump too quickly, reminding them that currency markets are shaped by complex forces like inflation, monetary policy, and geopolitical alignment. Others in this fictional world emphasize the enormous potential, arguing that such a moment marks the beginning of mainstream recognition of Iraq's economic recovery. Every voice adds to the tension, shaping public perception as millions of people follow updates with a level of anticipation normally reserved for major tech announcements or political events. In the fictional narrative, Iraq itself becomes the center of global attention, with reporters lining the streets of Baghdad to capture reactions from citizens, traders, and government officials. Imagine journalists interviewing a local shop owner who says the world finally acknowledging the dinar could boost national pride. Picture economists inside Iraq discussing whether increased demand for the currency might strengthen purchasing power or influence future monetary policy. Across global markets, traders watch for any signs of volatility in oil prices, bonds, or currency pairs linked to Middle Eastern economies, knowing that investor psychology alone can move markets. Even central banks might issue cautious clarifications to avoid misunderstandings. As this fictional scenario intensifies, people who exchange their dinar in the opening days might begin sharing stories online. Not outrageous claims, but simple reflections on the surreal feeling of seeing a once-doubted currency treated with respect. And through it all, one question drives the narrative. What if this were ever real? What if the world someday leans toward a more interconnected currency future where emerging market currencies gain recognition far earlier than experts predicted? Whether or not that day comes, the fictional exercise helps us understand the scale of impact such a move could have, and why being informed matters more than ever. And now, as we wrap up this imagined storyline, here's my message to you. If you enjoy deep dive scenarios like this, if you want to stay ahead of global currency movements, and if you want future stories and real-time updates that keep you prepared, then hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and drop a comment telling me your thoughts. Your engagement helps us bring you more original, high-impact content. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.